CloudyChiptv, is Outriders one of the best loot shooters out there? And also, is the new Worldslayer any good? So it's a two-part question. We're gonna go ahead and take. We'll answer the first part, then we'll go ahead and answer the second part, knowing that we've got a good amount of time that we've been able to dive into into this topic, right? So, as far as it being one of the biggest loot shooters, I can honestly say it's up there, but I don't feel it is. And I'll tell you why, because there's one game in particular to me that I feel overthrows it slightly, and not by much, and it's going to be The Division. The Division to me overthrows it a little bit because of what it's able to bring for it. Never mind diversity when it comes to the online, like all these extra like toxic zones, but what it's able to bring as far as like being able to like put together and like mold like the gear, right? The gear system. And it's very complicated. So anybody getting into it for the first time, as far as The Division, it gets a little bit complicated. Here in Outriders, they've done a better job at simplifying things a bit, and making the loot system a little bit easier to kind of understand and digest, and making it so you have different types of skill trees depending on the build that you have. So they've done a really good job. And the enemy types they're able to be a lot more creative, I feel, than The Division, because The Division is more like realism. It's more realistic, right? So you'll get guys with flamethrowers, you get guys charging after you, running after you, hiding behind cover as well, throwing grenades, and they get crazy in The Division. But here in Outriders, you get a little bit of both. So you get enemy types, so you get like actual enemies flying and diving at you, big enemies, so like monsters that it's really hard to kill. But as far as if we're talking loot shooters, we're talking actually looting and stuff, I say The Division does a little bit better job with the loot system. As far as what Outriders has been able to done, they give you very well like very different like archetypes, right? So you could fight regular enemy types, and then not only that, but you can also fight monsters. So flying monsters coming at you, little monsters crawling, running towards you, spitting acid at you, and then you got even some enemy types that will go from they're all the way on the other side of the stage and they'll just jump towards you and make it like, oh my god, you get that wow, like crazy factor, right? So you get it brings a lot of emotions to the game, and with it being so well done, the gameplay being done so well, I feel like it's up there, but I don't feel like it is the best loot. If we're talking loot, I would go ahead and give that over to The Division right now. So that's my take. Mag, what do you think? Do you agree or disagree?
I think the question has to do with out right now. Kind of feel like it depends on what you mean by out right now. If we're talking about like this year, the game that released, I can't agree with you because The Division is 3 years old. But understand, I'm the first one who's tweeted that The Division Part 2 was the best looter shooter I've ever played. And that still stands to this day. It's still the greatest that was out. But it's 3 years old, and they literally just announced their last content that's coming up for this whole thing for Division. This ain't about The Division, but the point is I'm a big fan. That's my number one looter shooter of all time right now. But at the moment, there's not a lot of new games that are close to Outriders, in my opinion. Borderlands came out recently with Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. I don't think it even stands close to Outriders when it comes to the experience overall. If you get into Outriders, you have to dive into it, and you'll see that like gameplay, you have a lot of fun, a lot of crazy, exciting moments, very special. With Tiny Tina, I played with Cloudy, but I just wasn't as thrilled or excited. I didn't feel the dynamic nature of like, let me use this ability and do this and do that, really go nuts the way Outriders does. So that's why I give Outriders the edge about games out right now. Now, if we're talking greatest of all time, then we have a different type of argument and a different conversation. But yes, Outriders to me at the moment of games that are released this year so far, July for anybody listening, July 2nd, specifically if you're watching this later, listening later. So at this moment, no. But who knows? Maybe a game will be announced coming out in November. Greatest looter shooter of all time. But I do feel like it's a win when it comes to the DLC. I think I was just playing through the story and then it got to a crazy plot twist that made me say this might be a better overall story experience than the base game, possibly. The base game has all the fundamentals, but I kind of confuse it because it's all meshed together so good for the DLC that it all makes sense and everything's just kind of intertwining. So I really love Outriders, in my opinion, and I think it's a good. So I disagree with you. Basically, agree to disagree. We need to hit that button. We need to get an alert button. Agree to disagree.
Yeah, and like I said, I feel like when it comes to Outriders, they, as far as like I said, looters, if we're talking looting, the system when it comes to looting and all that, I do feel like, the Division does a really good job because of, never mind the skill tree that you're able to have, because the skill tree here is also really great. But you the way you're able to take your weapons and mold that a certain way, right? Here you do it a little bit different. Here you get shards and stuff like that you can then use to kind of upgrade your weapons over in the Division. Over at Outriders. At the Division, you're able to kind of, get these little blueprints and mold your guns a little bit different and make it a little bit more powerful, and you can tweak it. There's a lot more tweaking and stuff that you can do over at the Division. So looting, I feel like it's very complicated. It's not an easy thing to kind of absorb, but once you get the hang of it and you understand it, it's amazing, right? So as far as looters, I would have to give that to the Division. But if we're talking the new Worldslayer, to me is like I think it was really well done. Like, never mind, like Mag was saying, the Outriders has a really great story. And if I had to compare it between the Division and Outriders, and sorry, this is becoming more of a comparison right now at this moment when it shouldn't be, but I feel like there's nothing else to compare this game to, because nothing else holds up to that standard but the Division when it comes to a looter shooter, to me. Like, Mag mentioned Tiny Tina's, doesn't even come close. That's not even in the same conversation. That's like talking, that's like trying to, that's like trying to bring up Kanye against someone who's just upcoming. Like, it's not in the same breath. Sorry. But anyways, my whole thing is that when it comes to Outriders, the story is really well done. It's easy to follow. You understand kind of what's happening. And then with this expansion, with the DLC, they include like these nice enemy types, with the Fisherman. And I have that gameplay out on my YouTube channel as well. If you guys want to check that out, go ahead and check me out at CloudyChiptv over at YouTube.
New plug.
But they introduced like the Fisherman was a really great introduction. I loved it. I was like, when I saw that character come up, I was like, oh my God. And then they had the lady that's really powerful, and she's the main reason for the DLC. I forget her name, but she was actually really well presented. I think they did a really good job presenting her. And there's some stuff in the game and the DLC I'm not gonna spoil. Go ahead and play it. But it's really great. And then like I said, in the enemy types, the way the enemies are able to come at you, and I think they improved on that by introducing some new enemy types, archetypes. So I loved it. I loved the DLC. It gave me a reason to come back to this game, because like I said, never mind that I have a really great story and a really great gameplay. The end game it's really well made too as well. But having this nice little piece of story added to it, it's a really nice introduction, and and it's a nice way to kind of get back into the groove of things when it comes to Outriders. And like I said, if I had to say if it was good, it was more than good. It was great. It was well needed, and not only that, but if they're able to give us another piece of DLC before they launch Outriders 2, or just give us the announcement, guys. Hint. I wouldn't be taken, but I would actually be the first one being like, yo, that game's getting pre-ordered right away, because they did such a great job with the first one. So well done. I have to applaud them, dude, because they've done that for a game to first come out and take on the challenge of a looter shooter, because it's not an easy challenge to do, and to do it well, where it doesn't feel like there's microtransactions having to be involved, and it, which is a big thing nowadays. They did a really good job, and they have to be applauded for that. So round of applause for the team behind Outriders and everything that they've done. So really well done.